6 years, we have reunited
This
our
meeting is
community
being
at the
recorded.
core cities for the IEEE International Smart Cities Conference. This conference brings together practitioners, city policymakers and administrators, infrastructure operators, industry representatives, and researchers to present technologies and applications, share their experiences and points of view about current and future smart city applications. This year, the IEEE International Smart Cities Conference is going virtual. We look forward that you have the best experience wherever you are around the globe. We know that the pandemic restricted our opportunities to get together in person, in conferences and physical events, but we can still reunite through virtual conferences and webinars. To keep up to date with the IEEE Smart Cities community activities, join us in our social media channels on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you haven't joined the IEEE Smart Cities community yet, please access smartcities.ieee.org to learn how.
Oops. Sorry about that. Okay. Perfect. That's just a brief highlight of what IEEE Smart Cities is. But just for anyone who might have missed, we're just talking about a consortium of different members of the IEEE organization. IEEE is just a global organization of technology enthusiasts, professionals, practitioners who come together to develop technology that intends to advance humanity. Now, without further ado, today's session is going to be an interesting mix. We want to do what we call lightning talks. So essentially, we have three industry professionals with us today. Our first speaker, as you saw in the poster as well as in the email, is Engineer Mercy Chelangat Koech. Mercy is a power and energy professional, I would say, and she actually currently chairs what we call IEEE Power and Energy Society PES Day campaigns. Maybe she'll tell us a bit more about that, but essentially, Mercy is well versed in the power and energy field, and ideally, she's going to now share what measures we need to take in terms of thinking about energy challenges today, energy challenges for the future, and what smart cities requirements need to be when you talk about power and energy. So without further ado, Mercy, you have 10 minutes starting now. Thereafter, we'll have Stacy.
Great. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all here. Thank you, Irvine, for the invitation and looking forward to this session. So yeah, as you've heard, my name is Mercy and I'm an electrical engineer working with off-grid communities. So today I would like to just share about the different smart city blocks. So regarding the energy side, especially, we do realize that there are challenges that are unique to the African continent. And so as opposed to, say, just transposing technologies from the different parts of the world, it's essential to ensure that the technologies that we bring in solve the core challenges that we experience as a continent in the different parts. And just recognizing that there is diversity, huge diversity across the continent with the different power pools, the East African power pool, Southern power pool, West African and Central. And the North Africa. So we need to see ways of ensuring that everyone's needs are met. So just looking at different parts of the world, we realize that many areas in the Western are urbanized, as opposed to areas here where most of the population is rural. So we need to see the technologies that have worked for these areas and just seeing how we can learn from the already implemented smart cities to also create solutions that are unique to our environment. So When we talk about energy, we of course consider generation, transmission, distribution, and utilization by the end user. And so we need to take all this into consideration when designing and implementing the systems. So looking at also some of the technologies that have come up as we are able to monitor and actually kind of predict some of the faults that could happen in the system. These are just some of the resources, especially the data that has been mined over time. This can ensure that we avoid future disasters, or actually kind of really ensure there is still power during emergency situations. Another aspect I would also like to touch on is the efficiency of devices. This is because as more and more devices are utilizing energy, we need to ensure that we have devices that use the right quantity of energy. They need to be energy saving so that we also don't waste the energy that we need, that we are generating rather, and ensure that everyone has access to this energy. This brings me to another challenge where close to 1 billion people around the world are not connected to the grid. And so seeing that a huge percentage, close to 60, are in the African continent, we need to ensure that we also take care of these cases, because there are more modular technologies that are coming up that we can easily use in these communities to also raise them to the levels of the smart cities. So looking at the different smart city blocks, so this include environment governance. For one, we need to encourage the use of renewable energy technologies for the many advantages that we know. So we need to conserve the environment and make the energy that we are generating sustainable. Then it's also another building block is public safety. So we see that some of the already utilized fossil fuels actually cause health issues. So we need to ensure that these are considered so that the health of the people who use this power is actually considered during the delivery process. And then when it comes to planning, we realize that different areas have different population distribution. So depending on the area that you go to, whether it's sparsely populated or clustered, you need to find an energy solution to fit that scenario. Regarding resource utilization, this is another building block. And we realize that we have to monitor what energy we are producing and using so that we can manage the demand side management and ensure that the people who really need the power have it at all times. And then on the side of telemedicine, we have seen technologies that can now ensure that you can, or rather patients in the areas where there is a low doctor to patient ratio can have access to healthcare treatment right from other people who are more experienced from a different part of the world. And so other aspects more advanced like VR are also trying to improve how things like surgeries are done, and all these are powered by energy. And then looking at the home care. So in our homes, we have the different devices. Nowadays, they are smart, and we can learn from the different devices that we are using to see how best to conserve the energy, and also ensure that, of course, the electricity is getting expensive. And so to reduce consumption and ensure savings, we need to monitor the energy to ensure this. Yeah, so other bits are, of course, like connectivity to power communications and other aspects like social activities and entertainment. So I think my 10-minute lightning speech ends there. Yeah.
Thanks, Mercy. Thanks.
Yeah.
And just for anyone who's wondering, I asked the presenters specifically not to have PowerPoint slides because I think it's I don't know about you, but I think it makes so much sense to actually engage your listening and auditory faculties to just be able to point out everything instead of having to read everything from the slides when the speaker is speaking. Please, you can put your questions in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them towards the end of it. And also, in case you want to just jump in, raise your hand. We'll be happy to also admit you to speak. That being said, thank you, Mercy, also for laying a good foundation, for the smart cities whole building block. We need energy as a foundational requirement, and I believe then Stacey is going to jump in onto how we are building now logistical solutions around water management, the challenges we face in that area. So Stacey is a water solutions engineer. Amongst many things, which she'll be happy to tell us. And I'm happy to have you here, Stacey. Please, if you don't mind, I'm going to give you the next 10 starting now.
Thank you, Ivan. Yes, as Ivan has introduced me, I'm a water solutions engineer, a mechanical engineer in training. I believe the other items may not be relevant for this sitting, but I'm glad to be in the presence of so many informed individuals in this forum. I'll be taking you through water management and sustainable water management for cities. So for me, I think water has been put in the back burner. In most cases, you find people only think about water once they open the taps and there's no water. That's when, of course, alarm bells ring and people now think about calling the caretaker or finding out if the borehole pump is okay, checking if the water treatment system is running, but it's never a thought that people actually think about it throughout. They don't put as much thought similar to maybe internet. People always ensure they have internet throughout. They know where the internet is coming from, but water, it's only thought of when the taps are not running, when the taps are running dry. And you find that this is alarming, especially now that you find more than half of the population, the world's population, is living in cities. And right now in Nairobi, less than half of the people living in Nairobi actually have access to clean water. And this is, I always say it's the inverse. We make this joke in the office where you find more people have access to internet than they do actually have access to water. And yet it's still being put in the back burner. So I believe water is a key aspect in creating smart cities, sustainable cities, and sustainable development. When I think about smart cities, many people think about metaverse, they think about voice recognition technology, face recognition technology. Now you can open your phone with your face. People only think about that when they think about technology, but we don't really think about the impact that technology has, say, for water systems. When I think about a smart system in the water management sector, I would think about a city that uses data and technology to create efficiencies and improve sustainability around water. In cases where now we use Internet of Things enabled sensors, we call it IoT, to collect real-time data and use this data now to discover, oh, we don't have water in this part of the city. We need this dam to be developed in this part of the city. Now, with that data and technology, we're able to now guide decisions, not only around water, around transport, of course, around development, around urban planning. So when I think about smart cities, that's what I think about. Having the ability to collect data and technology so that you can create an efficient, sustainable city. When we talk about when I talk about smart water systems, we would like to address key areas. For example, we lose a lot of water through leaks, breakages, and losses along the line. We lose quite a few millions every year just for leakages along the line. Every now and then, when you're walking around and you're driving around, you always see a pipe running somewhere, and yet we are not able to monitor. We're not, our utility systems are not aware of these leakages. So creating smart cities will now be using technologies to run and monitor such leakages, monitor our pipeline, monitor the health of our pipelines, monitor how much water it is we're actually using and how much water it is we're wasting. That's on the clean water front. But now when we move to the wastewater front, where we have runoff water, rainwater, whenever it rains in the city, it's always a panic because the roads are flooded. Where does this water go to? It just runs off and goes into, say, Nairobi River. Instead of us utilizing that water, treating it and taking it back, of course, in our homes, if we can use it for flushing and so on, the better. Instead of having less people access with water, you can use that water to improve accessibility of water. When we talk about digital solutions in water, we are talking about giving customers the ability to view in real time and analyze the amount of water they use. I believe this has been seen mainly in the energy sector, where right now, whenever you are in your home, you can actually monitor how much electricity you're using. You can look at your tokens and say, yeah, today I've used this much, tomorrow I've used this much. Whether this is the case for most water users, I don't think so. Right now, everyone has their tokens, everyone is able to see how much it is they're using, but it's not the same for water. And this is where we would like to move towards having smart cities, where the same way you can send money on your phone should be the same way you can actually get an alert about how much water you're using, or if there's any leakages in your system. These solutions, I think, have been used around the world, and now we're trying to find a way to tailor these solutions for ourselves, find a way to collect this data, analyze the data, and use it to our advantages, especially for us in the developing world, where we are growing rapidly. We are growing more rapidly than the people in the developed world because we still have more room for growth. So therefore, actually, we need that technology more than, say, them who already have the infrastructure. As we're setting up our infrastructure, we should have this in the back burner. According to World Health Organization, we find it predicts that by 2025, more than half the population will be living in water-stressed areas. That means in our audience, I don't know how many we are, more than half of us will be struggling to get water. And therefore, even more important, why we should use these technologies to ensure we reduce waste and we utilize, of course, wastewater and find a way to treat it, to make sure that our taps don't run dry, make sure our children have water in schools, for example. Just as I close down, water is as vital as energy, as internet, as any other sector, and therefore it should be prioritized as such. We should not only think about water when we don't have water. You should think about water while you're using water. The same way you're using energy-saving bulbs, is the same way you should look at your tap and think, how am I using this water? Am I brushing my teeth and letting my water run through the tap? So it's very important that we have that in us, that the same way we have tried to move towards energy efficient products is the same way that we should move towards an efficient and sustainable water. That's it.
Great. Great. Thank you. Number one, thank you so much, both of you. I mean, you're right on time. actually for you, you've spared us some 2 minutes, which is good. Nonetheless, I mean, it's interesting also what you're bringing on board, the fact that number one, we don't really consider water as much as we should, which is a problem. Number two, that the fact that we need to also build a cyclical model for the same water that we use, you know, collecting, treating, reusing, you know, which is very important. I'm sure in the chat, we're gonna get questions about such solutions, what we should do and all that. But yeah, I'm sure in the Q&A roundtable, we'll be able to cover those. Thank you so much, Stacy. Thank you. And on to our next speaker. This is an old friend. Oh yeah, and just to mention in passing, when you guys are from diverse places, I know, of course, majority is from Kenya, but then when I was looking at the registration, we have, I think, around 30% who are coming from across Africa and the rest of the world. So I'm really, really, really glad that you're trying to find a collective of best practices from across the world for Africa. That's really amazing. So the next speaker is joining us from Oxford. This is engineer Martin Wachir, doing a DPhil in engineering science at University of Oxford. And what she's going to be tackling the question of what communication technologies, number one, what challenges and what communication technology or solutions do we have or should we consider for smart cities? And again, Wachir is also another man of many accomplishments, which I'll allow him to bear the burden of outlining if he wants to, but nonetheless, Wachir, here you go, 10 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Perfectly, yes.
Good. Now, I think we can avoid the details of accomplishments today because it's time to humble and just share with everyone about this interesting topic. So my background is in communication. I have a degree in telecommunication engineering and currently I'm doing a PhD in the same area. So I feel like this is also a very interesting topic to talk about. Now, it's smart cities, and I appreciate the fact that the first two speakers have given us a very good introduction of what smart cities are and what will power smart cities in terms of energy, in terms of water supply. And at the center of all these technologies or all these innovations that we have in smart cities is a communication technology. Because there's a way everything now is converging in such a way that nearly every device in smart cities is going to communicate with the other device or different applications and so on. So communication is a very important thing to consider when designing smart cities or when designing smart cities applications and systems and so on. Now, when you talk about communication, it would be a disservice if you don't start by mentioning how a communication system looks like. And in simple terms, a communication system would have a transmitter, someone sending the message or something sending the message. Then there'll be the channel that the message will propagate, and then the receiver. So it must have those three aspects in the least possible case. Now, in the channel, then you have different ways of transmitting this information. There are some cases where you use your wired or systems like fiber optics or Ethernet cables and so on. And in other cases where you use wireless systems such as the normal electromagnetic radiation, electromagnetic waves for transmission, or even visible light communication. So that in simple terms is how a communication system looks like. And then if we want to look at it even in better details in relation to smart cities, we ask ourselves then what is communicating in smart cities? So from our first two speakers, they've talked about water supply. We've looked at things to deal with energy. So we have other aspects such as IT connectivity. We have transport in the city. We have things like urban mobility. We have aspect of solid waste management. We have things such as citizen participation, where you participate in local governance or e-governance. and policy making, all these applications or all these services being unified in a communication system. So we want to see how all these different areas can communicate with each other. So in such a way that a citizen of a city can go into one platform and access information about nearly everything. You'll know which routes in the city are having traffic jams right now. You'd know where not to go in the city because it's insecure, or the air pollution in those sides of the city is too much. So there's that aspect of unifying all this communication. And therefore, we come to a very key part of smart cities. And I think this is a major area in the smart city innovation, the Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things is where every device or different devices and objects. I think I'm hanging, or is Lumumba hanging? Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I just saw an image that is not moving on the screen. So we are looking at different devices in the smart city. So public transportation. So you have the vehicle and the different infrastructure connected to each other. You have the train system. You have the houses, sensors inside the house. All these systems are interconnected into a network. It can be a single or centralized or centrally managed network, which of course, if you look at it, has disadvantage, because one point of failure and there's a problem, you're going to have issues with access in the entire city. So you also consider, so networks need to be heterogeneous in such a way that they need to allow different applications, and they need to have things like expandability. So this network should be able to expand in case of new applications, in case of new services or new verticals. So those are some of the things that a communication system for smart cities should look like. We also look at reliability, the reliability of the infrastructure, because this is going to be a communication system dependent city. So where everything depends on the availability of the network or connectivity, then reliability of this infrastructure is very important. If you have fiber optics networks, then they should be in such a way that if we have a fiber cut, then we go to wireless access. There's a way in which all these systems interoperate and can be able to link into different networks when one fails. You also need energy efficient systems, because you're going to have billions and billions of devices connected to the network. It must be efficient. So we look at things like, for example, the Internet of Things, where you have millions of devices. These devices, one of the processes in those kind of sensor networks is to discover, for example, the topology of the network, which is an area I'm working on in my research. So for you to discover the topology of the network, you need to identify where the nodes are in the network. And this takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. Therefore, to be able to carry out this, then you need a more efficient, energy efficient process that cuts down the cost of energy consumption, reduce the time of discovery of these devices in the network before you are able to carry out the processes such as routing or different communication activities in the network. So energy efficiency is very important, and even in other systems like the smart grid and so on. So the performance of these networks must be in such a way that they'll allow a large number of devices to operate in them. Security is a very key consideration in these communication systems, because with massive connectivity, with many devices connecting, then people want to be assured of their privacy and security of information and data. And this is very critical in the network. So those are some of the requirements, which are also challenges that we need to consider while looking at these networks. Now, as I wind up, what are some of the applications that then some of the network communication technologies that are being used? Now, I'll start with the most recent ones. And we have cities now, we have something called the reflectable intelligent surfaces. So cities now will use, people are considering using surfaces like windows, glasses, or walls in the towns to act as relays for transmission. And this is going to increase coverage, because you look at the current trends where we are going to high frequency transmissions. There are very short distances of that signals can move at high frequencies, and therefore the use of these intelligent reflecting surfaces is going to increase coverage, and that's one of the key considerations for 6G transmissions. A lot of application of machine learning and AI in communication system. And if you look at things like opportunistic networks in Internet of Things, you'll have a way in which networks get the knowledge and learn about the structure to be able to adapt to different status. So idle status or mobility of the network. When a new node joins the network, how does it get added to the network? How does this node discover the network, and how does the network discover entrance of the new nodes? So there's a lot of learning and very intelligent networks that are being used today. Extensive use of, I'm just mentioning this because this is the last minute, extensive use of wireless sensor networks. And those are things you can look at, and we're going to discuss in the questions if anyone has questions on those. Software-defined networks, very much virtualization, issue of using slices for different verticals or different applications in the networks are also very ripe and areas of research. So currently we are still using LTE advanced in smart cities like Dubai, Korea. 5G has come in, and advanced Wi-Fi standards like 802.11 AH. So all those and many other applications. I look forward to hearing from your questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
1 minute.
I was about to call you out for that, but thank you so much. I like the fact that you've also given the characteristics that we should look out for. Networks should be expandable. I think we really suffered on expandability of networks, especially with 3G, and especially now that we're talking about even, you know, we need to swap most times to when we have new technologies coming out. Resilience is another factor. Self-healing networks as a factor of smart cities and smart cities solutions. And yeah, so there's quite a lot that we need to cover on that. Again, I just want to mention to everyone here today that this is just supposed to be a primer. We hope to have more of these sessions. Nonetheless, I'm sure that we've also gotten a bit of you know, content from every speaker who's come earlier. Now, I've lost the chat, but I think we can begin with Victor's question. I know Alex, Stella, and Shayla, I think I saw your questions, but I just want us to begin with Victor's questions. Question. Victor, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you to unmute and just, you know, ask your question. Similarly, I'll also ask Alex and Stella later, and anyone else who I might have missed. Sorry, I dropped off a bit. Victor, if you're there.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Wandera. I'm a medic by profession. So most of what you're talking about to me is kind of gibberish, but nevertheless, I would like to know how can telemedicine solutions strategically fit in with all these technologies that will be used in smart cities. I've heard of reflective surfaces, IoT, and the rest, expandable networks, etc. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. I think Wachir, that could go to you, and then maybe anyone else, Stacy, Mercy could be able to jump in as well.
Yeah, thank you, Victor, for your question. Telemedicine is one of the great or biggest applications in the current networks, and is one of the objectives of smart cities, so that if in events of things like COVID, we don't have to go to hospital, we can consult our GPs from home. So how is it going to benefit from all these technologies? Number one, we look at things like like security. So one thing about medical data, when I'm consulting my doctor about my conditions, I want it to remain private. I don't want to get out there and have information about my health everywhere. So key considerations such as security are very critical in upcoming technologies like 5G. It's been a key issue, even in telemedical applications and so on. Latency of the network. So when we talk about latency, we mean in layman way, is just the time taken to communicate. So between the sender and the receiver, how much time? So let's say you're consulting, or you are having a specialist from Kenyatta Hospital doing a remote surgery in Marsabit, and there's probably he's operating a robotic device and working on a real human in Marsabit. So we want a command that is being done at Kenyatta Hospital to be happening at the same time in Marsabit. So close to zero latency is the objective of future networks, and is very critical in medical application for the sake of real-time applications. And then finally, I would talk about wearable devices. So we look at things like medicine is going in the direction where we opt more for preventive than curative, or where you go for treatment. So people are opting to buy wearable devices. With my Apple Watch, I monitor my heart rate, I monitor my BMI, I monitor every aspect of my health, and different wearable devices. So with these wearable devices, which will be connected to the internet or to our general practitioners in the future, or even there's a concept of body area networks, where you'll have devices to do monitoring. If you have, let's say, blood clot, it would be noticed earlier, and treatment would be done, or you'll get into emergency. It will beep an emergency service immediately, like an ambulance service and so on, and you get your care. So these are some of the applications that are coming in. So before we have these wearable devices, issues such as security, issues such as the amount of information or data generated from these devices is a lot. So there's need for processing capacity. And that's why we are looking at enhanced mobile broadbands to allow for transmission of these enormous amounts of data. It needs a lot of very low latency. That's another requirement, which was defined as a requirement for 5G and future networks. So those are some of the ways in which these applications, technologies come in to help into the telemedicine. Thank you.
All right, great. Mercy, Stacy, want to add something on that? I know, Mercy, you also opened this Pandora's box earlier when you mentioned that there's telemedicine being built on top of energy solutions.
Yeah, and well, some of the projects we worked on together as well. So mine is, Wachir has really given the technical side of it and the input. So yeah, I just wanted to, give an example of some of what has been implemented in Kenya, though low scale, on a small scale, but I'm hoping with the health coverage plan, the uptake can also go high. So I think we have Gertrude's Hospital that had this initiative running earlier. And then through Smart Village, we also implemented in 3 sites in Kenya, as well as a number of them in Uganda. And so this was in partnership with Rotary Global Telehealth Network and Smart Village. Yeah. So they involved solar powered systems that were just connected to provide the connection between the patient and the healthcare providers. Yeah, so for my end was just those few examples, and just to show that, yeah, I guess we are heading in the right direction. Yeah.
Yes, it's happening. It's happening. There was a question for Stacy specifically, if I'm not wrong. I'm sorry, I think it was Stella or Sheila who asked that question, and I think I've lost it from my chat. Do you mind unmuting and asking that question again? Or Stacy, if you can see it, then you can just relay it and then answer, if you don't mind.
I think it would be better for Sheila to.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Address it.
Sheila, you can also tell that, you can tie that with the, I saw you also had a question on security. Sheila, are you here with us?
Can I read for her? Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sheila's here.
Okay.
Please, we'd like to,
Yeah.
yeah, perfect.
Hi.
Hi.
Mine was touching on two areas. You are answering the question on telemedicine. But first, let me begin with the first question. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, my question was on touching on the water management in smart cities. Considering it's all about a smart city, I believe when you touch on smart, you should touch on being able to use the existing resources. So in this, touching on recyclability and reusability of the water or what is already in existence. So my question was on what facilities have been placed in existing or in cities that have already been advanced in smart cities. What has been placed or what is being planned to be placed to be able to cater for recyclability and also the reusability of existing water. And then on security, it was about I would like to ask Ora to be expounded on how data how I can ensure that my data is secured, or maybe an example or two of ways security is ensured. Yes, thank you.
Sounds good. Yes, you can go first.
Yeah. That's all.
Thanks, thank you, Sheila, for the question. I think you're right. When you
Yes.
talk about smart cities, we are talking about obviously reusing and recycling whatever resources that we have available. When you talk about technologies that are available in terms of this, we currently, I think there are many cities that ensure rainwater harvesting. We've done a similar project as this, a Xylem water solution in Michigan, where we had a country with problems with the runoff, with stormwater. Now, stormwater, it's quite a bit, and it can make a big impact in the city. So the issue was during certain seasons, the city became actually unbearable, and it was almost like flash floods. And we advised them. I think this is now in line with the smart cities. We deployed a series of flow meters and rain gauges around the city to ensure that we are able to monitor the amount of water with the amount of rain and whatever seasons that are expected. And then with this technology, then we now built infrastructure around it, where you have rainwater collection, stormwater drainage, appropriate stormwater drainage and rainwater collection in the building. And then this is now channeled into a wastewater treatment system, which ideally, because where we get it wrong is not all water needs to be treated by reverse osmosis. So if you have rainwater, which is non-salty water, you now only just remove the turbidity, the suspended solids, basically. And then now this water was reverted back into the system to be used for flushing, showers, and general use. So such technologies is available. And I think not only with this as an example, and I think you've also mentioned about controlled distribution of water. we are now moving towards smart meters. Smart meter technology is where you have you deploy various meters, of course, in your city, and you're able to the utility company is able to monitor, and even the user is able to monitor the amount of water being used in real time at any given point, where we are now avoiding this business of the human interface of someone physically going to read the water meter and then reverting back to the utility company. You see, there's room for error. There's always room for error whenever man is involved. So such technologies are now where smart cities are moving to, where you're now deploying smart meters along the certain area, and then you're now able to monitor in real time what is being used. I think that is now on controlled distribution and ensuring that you minimize what you call non-revenue water. We now know, we get paid for the amount of water that we distribute to the city. I believe I have touched on the three issues that you had mentioned. I don't know if there's anything else that you need clarification.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Stacey. Thanks, Sheila. Sheila, there's another question from Victor in the chat. You can be looking at that as I invite Wachir to respond on the security issue. And Nancy, I see your hand. You'll be up next. Thanks, Alex, for jumping in as well.
Yeah. I think security is always a key concern with technology, and we know we've had so many cases of breaches, data breaches, which is as old as the technology itself. Now, one thing when you're coming up with new technology or even new standards, security needs to be part of the design. It should be the whole part of the design. So before you get approvals from bodies like ITU or even IEEE standards and so on, you need to guarantee security and reliability. So most of the part, security is designed into the systems. Like if you look at 5G, if you just go and Google 5G, you look at its security, the security concerns, and then the way they're addressed in terms of protecting the user data. IoT, the same thing. So when you're collecting this massive amount of data, what are you going to do with it? And I'm so glad that Alex Watila has just mentioned in the chat about GDPR, for instance. So also governments and different organizations. So GDPR is for EU, are coming up with data protection regulations that protect their citizens from misuse of their data, or if there's a breach, like in, for instance, the Kenyan one, we have one in Kenya called, that was recently passed, the Privacy and the Data Protection Act. There's even an Office of Data Protection, the ODPP, who is Kasait. So in Kenya, for instance, right now, if you have a breach, you need to report it within 72 hours, or else you're going to get heavily fined for not reporting. And these are new laws that are coming in place to protect users, because many companies are now getting interest in processing data. And this is good, because the more you process data, the more insights you're able to get, and we are better placed to solve problems that were previously difficult. So protection is part of the process, of the design process in the technical case, but also in terms of policy, there's a lot of work being done in the same. And as citizens, we must also participate in ensuring privacy is ensured, because that's why there's a lot of call to action with even non-governmental organizations to protect people from the internet. One other thing, last thing, if you look at children's right online, for example, I think recently we've been having an issue with the Supreme Court nominee in US, and that was one of the main subjects of conversation. And Communication Authority of Kenya has been doing a lot, still not enough to protect kids, but a lot in terms of protecting kids online. This is also something that is very crucial to consider during as we change, as technology changes, and as we have more access to more people. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you. I see a lot of questions around policies and what can be done on an individual perspective. I want to just give you, Nancy, since your hand has been up, I want to give you an opportunity to make your question, comment. And then in the interest of time, guys, unless you'll allow me to add some 10 minutes to this, I wanted us to keep, to stick to the time. Nonetheless, Nancy, please go on. You could unmute.
Yeah, thanks, Lumumba. I hope you guys can hear me. I have an unstable connection. I had a follow-up question to Stacy on the issue of the smart meters. I really like it and it's more sustainable, but I just want to hear her perspective on different water utilities and even landlords, for example. I had a case whereby some of them don't want to adopt the smart meters because possibly they know what they're doing with the other meters, really impacting on the on the residents and different water users. And then if you may allow me just to comment on the issue of the policies and what if there are different consortiums. I think there are, and also on the water harvesting. I think maybe you can look it online. We have the National Water Harvesting Authority that is really promoting the issue of water harvesting at different places within the country and even at community level. And making this policy guides allow people to harvest water, it also depends on how we different organizations are passing this information from the grassroots level. How we communicate from the community really also matters a lot. I could have shared more, but due to time, let me give Stacey a chance to respond to my question. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. The issue of the smart water meters, I believe the uptake for smart meters, especially here in Africa, is a bit low. One would say because of the capital investment required for smart water meters. However, we are now moving, I believe this audience here now, you are more aware of green buildings. The green building standards requires you to have smart water meters and monitor exactly the amount of water it is that you're using and each user is using for that building. Nancy, to answer your question, landlords, it's a difficult one, but I think it has more to do with the capital investment of smart water meters. And I think more and more, because now, as I am in the built environment, you find more and more landlords actually prefer, because now it reduces his he will not need a caretaker. Basically, if you have smart water meters, that means he's able to read it. He's able to read whatever readings that he needs to from wherever he is. So right now the uptake is much more because of the people want to eliminate the human interface, and therefore we hope that as we continue educating, of course, the property developers and engineers in this space, then we'll be able to have more smart water meters in the built environment. That's my comment.
All right,
and
thanks.
Comment on, just to slightly comment on the policy. He said that as a community, I think Nancy, you said as a community, then it would be easier to tackle it as a community. And I remember when there was VAT put on solar and there was a clapback from everyone. I believe if we are able to do similar things with this, then we're able to push such policies back. Because I know for boreholes it's metered and you pay for the metered water, and I understand it's groundwater, but for rainwater, I believe there's still some work to be done on those policies. Thank you.
Okay, sounds great. Sounds great. I still see there's a question from Victor. Cypher, your hand is up. Can I then request that we add, if you don't mind, 10 more minutes to this discussion, just to ensure we have a close out of it all. Let me see in the chat or by raising of the thumbs. I see Alex is okay with it. Anyone else? Just to be sure we are going with the with the right, perfect, okay. I mean, this is not quorum, but I agree that we have some loose ends to tie. So I'm going to allow Cypher to come in. Cypher, please unmute and raise your question. And then we can look to close with Victor's question. Cypher?
Hi, mine wasn't a question. I wanted to respond to the issue raised around security. So there's two ways to look at it. You can either look at it as you're the client or the customer who is using the IoT solution, or the solutions implemented in smart cities, or you are the person producing the solutions. So one thing is you need to consider as a customer, the way the information security community is set up is such that a lot of things are open source. So if there is a component with known vulnerabilities, somebody will be talking about it. So before you make a purchase for that nanny cam for your child, or for
Sorry, Edwin, you just need to unmute again. Sorry, I think
okay, sorry, where did I lose you?
About the open source, just speaking from open source
Okay,
solutions.
so the way the information security community is set up is that a lot of things are open source. So if something has vulnerabilities are like weaknesses and they are known, there will be information about it online. So before you purchase or use components, for example, IoT components, be it the smart camera in your house, the nanny camera for your kid, your smart cooker that leverages IoT for the settings, check to see whether those things have been reported as having vulnerabilities. But the second thing is the way IoT is set up, more and more power is coming to the user because it's decentralized. It's devices at the edges communicating with each other. So your data should ideally be yours. Some manufacturers, for example, the company that manufactures this camera called UCAM, what they do is they put the privacy completely on, like they take care of the privacy, but the data is entirely private to you. So how that is implemented is through asymmetric encryption. So how encryption works is you take data. So Ivan has a message that he wants to send to Wachir. Ivan will encrypt the data with a key, and Wachir will decrypt the data either with the same key or a different key. So it works in two ways. It can be symmetric, in which you use the same key, or asymmetric, in which you have a private key, which is secret, and a public key, which everybody knows. So in this case, you'd be using the asymmetric form of encryption. So Arvin would encrypt his data with his private key, and Wachir would decrypt the same data with Arvin's public key. You understand? So how that works is, for example, for that smart camera, if all the data is encrypted using your private key, the data is only private and can only be seen by you. So it would be flowing through the provider's network, but the provider also cannot see what you're sending, which also brings me to the fact that when you hear something is end-to-end encrypted, you need to be cognizant of the fact that, yes, it is end-to-end encrypted, but that does not mean that only you can see that data. For example, the end-to-end encryption of Telegram is very different from the one implemented with WhatsApp. So you also need to be cognizant of those things. So as an implementer, if you're the one making the thing, put privacy at heart so that it's also less on you in terms of compliance and regulation and the fines you might face. And if you're a user, do your research. That's all I had.
Sounds good. Clearly also, you know, security is a whole landmine on its own. So we'll definitely consider that as well going forward. I see Victor, policies, you want to know how we can effect change without being in government. Good question. Can we just have this last round of responses? Stacy, Martin, Mercy, what can we do from an individual perspective without being in government to effect policies? You know, I think for smart cities to actually work, we need to be smart ourselves. And I think the problem is us. So I don't know what we can do. Stacy, maybe you can go first.
I had commented earlier and said probably as a community, I think we are now here as IEEE. If IEEE was to be able to present this sort of issues, especially around the solar and the highlighted water utility providers, then maybe, you know, we could get a step forward. We have IEEE, we have IEK, we have EBK, we have all these forums for engineers. And now we, as the policy, we say that we're the policy creators and the policy users, we can now then suggest our way, how we want this policy to be put in line. I think that's what we can do as an individual perspective. Just now bring in as a community, because now as an individual, if you go, maybe they will not hear you, but if we go in as IEEE, where we have this body of engineers, then they would hear us. The voice is louder. I have given an example of when VAT was put on solar. I mean, there were shouts everywhere, and I think it took a month or so, and everything was down. Therefore, I think that's what we should do. Basically, use these forums to push certain policies back.
All right, thanks. Wachir, in 2 sentences or less.
I think people are doing online petitions, so you can start a petition or you can participate in these petitions to change policies. I think once you get a certain number of signatures, these petitions can go to parliament and policies can change. So that is one way of taking part in policy change or influencing policy.
Great. That's change.org if I'm not sure, but yeah, we can definitely explore that. Marcy, 2 sentences or less.
Yeah, I actually agree with the other speakers that I think community is the best bet. Yeah, really without our input in a more, in a more, I would say, we of course know how the government operates. So nowadays we have tools that we can use to kind of fight for that. So yeah, community, I guess, really, should be reinforced. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our speakers, Stacy, Marcy, Martin. We appreciate so much. And also, one thing that I think is important to that, Victor, is raising awareness. All right, and that awareness is part of also what we are doing today, and hopefully going forward. And just as I mentioned awareness, allow me to just also increase that awareness further. I'm going to share my screen and mention a bit more about IEEE smart cities. I hope this is going to work. But nonetheless, so basically I wanted to highlight the fact that joining IEEE smart cities is free. Looks like my screen there has frozen, but IEEE smart cities is free. I think I'm going to share that in the recap email. Number 1. Number 2, also we have the larger body called IEEE itself, which is also, free to sign up, but it's just a collective of professionals, technology enthusiasts, and technical people in the field of all aspects engineering, who are also sharing all this information. Then basically that means you also get to be appraised, share this knowledge, and the more people are aware, the better they're able to make better decisions. And I think that's where we want to head. By raising that awareness, then we're also able to raise better knowledge for, better decisions going forward. That being said, I want to thank you everyone who's made time to be here today. We intend to make these sessions regular. So I'll post a feedback form maybe in the recap email. Hopefully we can get to know what you guys would like to hear, how regular you'd like to make these sessions be, and also what say sessions or topics you'd want to have us engage a bit deeper on. Thank you so much. I saw Kidinji in the room. Kidinji is one of my bosses in IEEE. Kidinji, you could have the last word. We have 3 minutes to the hour.
Thank you very much, Lumumba. I confirm that you can hear me.
Yeah, perfectly.
Yeah, and I don't like the word boss. In fact, I hate,
I use it deliberately.
And maybe you know that, and that's why you used it. I hate that word because I think it has a very bad perception of what really a boss is. Maybe we could talk about my colleague, a fellow volunteer, something like that. I think it will actually make a lot of sense. So maybe for the larger team in the audience, my name is Kitinji Muriungi, and let me be frank. I'm really happy to see this kind of discussion taking place here, because I think I'm part of the IEEE. I'm also in the Smart City Publications team. I'm largely involved in making of one of the smart cities here, Kenya, which is Konza, from the consultancy side. So when people are talking about water, energy, policies, I know what it means because I'm part of the team that is doing some more work in the policy area. From the consultancy side, with the help of Lumumba from Huawei as contractors. And let me say, I like to see this more because I'm actually learning and also getting more insights and getting the perception that people have. When we say, how can we do things in the government? I never used to like to work in the government. But working from the consultancy side, which is more of a private arm, doing the consultancy work with a different kind of an organization and all that, I think it has given me a feel and something that I know for sure it can be done. Yes, it will take some time, but trust you me, we are there and we will be there. Not today, not tomorrow, but one step at a time. One person at a time, one policy at a time, one awareness at a time, and we'll be there. Yes, again, on behalf of Lumumba, the whole IEEE fraternity, always feel welcome. I think this is what we need, Lumumba. And I think for the young professionals who are here, I'm the local young professional chair, and we are looking forward for professionals at least to engage the community, talk to us, and do so much more. Yes, let's keep on engaging Lumumba. Looking forward for more. Even if it's next week or next week, but what? Because the engagement I've seen here, this is a forum that brought in people who actually knew what they want and brought in people who are actually here to learn and engage. And I'm really grateful for that. Thank you and cheers, man. Bye-bye.
Perfect. This is 10 minutes past. I want to stop here. Thank you so much. Look forward to my email. I'll have some recap of what we've been discussing and also give your feedback. Asanteni sana. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
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 Take care.